For the digital marketing news this week, I've got some really important stuff to cover this week. I'm going to go over a little bit of economics, which are impacting digital marketing, and then I'm going to get into some really important digital marketing news. And then after that, I'm going to get into a really cool opportunity that I have for you that you're absolutely going to love. So make sure to stay around for the end of this video. I'll try to keep it quick and brief as usual. So first thing is, it's important for everybody to realize that the economy contracted at a record rate last quarter in the United States. So July actually set back the jobs market just a little bit, right? So you could see this big dip, right? And things were headed in the right direction. And for the first time in July, there was a bit of a rise in weekly jobless claims. So that has changed things a little bit because whenever you have, a change in employment, and then also whenever you couple that with something such as the $600 stimulus ending, right? And they haven't reached a deal on, they were trying to get $250 stimulus and, as an ongoing program, but they did not reach that deal. What happens then is that impacts consumer spending. And when consumer spending is impacted, then that impacts what is going on with online activity and, of course, consumer spending online. So it's definitely something to watch. But at the same time, Amazon.com delivered soaring quarterly sales and profits. So they're completely thriving. Apple posted a better than expected 11% rise in quarterly sales, but Google, right, and the parent company of Google, Alphabet, reported a decline in quarterly revenue compared to a year earlier, which is the first time that that's ever happened. And then Facebook's revenue rose thanks to an increase in engagement of users. So that's what's going on kind of with those big players, and you might have seen the grand hearing that took place with them. It was incredibly awkward. They were completely the political officials were really attacking them, for better or for worse, for being monopolies. So there's a lot going on right now in the climate for large tech. Okay, so let's shift gears just a little bit into the digital marketing news. So first thing is, buy on Google, which is the direct way that you can purchase through Google, is going commission free. So before they would take a percentage of commission of every sale, and now they're going commission free, which is a direct attack against Amazon. Buy on Google is essentially a competitor to Amazon. They're trying to get into that business. Amazon takes massive fees, right? And so buy on Google is working to, it's completely free for now, right? Until they get some traction, I'm sure. Then they monetize like they do. This is essentially Google's business model. They come in, they do something at no cost until it gets enough traction, and then they start charging for it. But anyway, so it's free right now. Next thing, Google explains how to get away with intrusive interstitials. So before, in search engine optimization, you would get a penalty if you had an intrusive interstitial. So something in between your website and in between a user coming in that bothered them. You could get a penalty. You wouldn't rank high on that. Google says in a kind of an odd comment, offhanded comment inside of a webinar, that you can get away with it if you don't serve the interstitial to Googlebot. So take that for what it's worth. If you want to be kind of a renegade and try to show something different to users than to Google, you could do that, but it's kind of contradictory to their normal advice, so it's a little goofy. Next thing, Google says if you're going to be putting charts on your website, do that in an image, not inside of an HTML tag. So just a little tip for you there. And then in a big move, TikTok comes out and they launch a $200 million creator fund in the US. So what does that mean? TikTok decides they're going to give $200 million to people to create content inside the United States on their platform. They have to be 18 years old. They have to live in the US. They have to consistently post content that doesn't violate community guidelines. And why do you think that they would do this? Well, it's because Instagram, right, which Instagram and Facebook, right, Zuckerberg, all of them are a part of this grand hearing right now. What they have done, which can you consider this a monopoly? I'm not sure, but they have created Instagram Reel, which is launching in the United States. So that's going to be a competitor to TikTok, right? But can it be considered a monopolistic activity if, in fact, Instagram Reel is competing against TikTok, which is a Chinese company? But yes, essentially, the big argument against them is that something becomes a threat. They either buy it, they squash it out, or they replicate the technology on their own. Regardless, if you're a TikToker, or you want to make money on TikTok, you can go to that platform and try to get your own piece of that $200 million pie. I will not be going after that. Next thing, a new YouTube metric comes out and it shows creators how much they earn across the board. So it's called revenue per mil metric, so revenue per 1,000 impressions, and it will tell you how much you're earning per 1,000 impressions for the content that you've created on YouTube. Next thing, Facebook, the head of the Facebook newsfeed comes out with some pretty interesting information. I found this interesting. His name is Hedgemond. And Mr. Hedgemond, Mr. John Hedgemond, who's in charge of the newsfeed, says that surprisingly, the content that gets the most comments and the most likes very seldom is the content that actually gets the most views and gets the most traffic. So while some link posts get a lot of interactions, comments, and likes, that content is a tiny percentage of what most people see on Facebook, and news on these pages does not represent the most viewed news stories on Facebook either. So just because it's got a lot of comments doesn't mean it's a good thing. And when you think about your own interaction, I don't really like and comment on a lot of the things that I find the most interesting, especially on the news side, which, Facebook drives a ton of media attention and gets a lot of attention for the media. It's a big part of their strategy. Any publisher, they go nuts on the Facebook strategy. Next thing, Google AMP testing tool now recognizes web stories. So if you don't know what a web story is, with AMP, you can create this animation and it will get pulled from Google, and then it will be shown in the mobile version of Google. And when somebody clicks on it, it's like a story inside of Google, just like you would see on Facebook or Instagram. So the Google AMP testing tool, by the way, it's kind of a pain to set up, but the Google AMP testing tool will now recognize web stories. So now you've had this prior, but we've got stories everywhere, right? You've got, except for LinkedIn and Twitter, but basically all the other major sites are story focused. Next thing, the new version of WordPress creates a sitemap for you automatically. Thank you, WordPress. We appreciate you doing that for us. And then Google says that they're updating their rich results testing tool. So that's going to be a new testing tool. They're updating that. They're planning on expanding the rich results testing tool. We've been looking at all the feedback we're getting, and people are saying it's terrible. This is a different tool because they got rid of the structured data testing tool, so they're going to be working on updating that. Last thing I have for you, I made you a promise at the beginning of this. I said that I was going to have something great for you. Well, I feel like I do. So myself, our head of paid media, all of our top directors, not all of them, but many of our top directors at the company, we do a lot in paid media, manage over 50 million in paid media, and Google are doing a webinar, and I would love to invite you to attend. So Google is going to be our expert there. We're going to be revealing all of the latest beta things that are coming out in Google, all the new stuff that you haven't seen before. We're going to talk about forecasting. We're going to talk about all the new technologies. And this is going to be the coolest paid media webinar that I think you will see this year. We put a ton of work into it. It's nothing basic. It's nothing advanced. It's not like how to. It's like these are the coolest, most advanced things that you can do. It's not for beginners, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So please attend. All right. So your homework this week, if you're concerned about your ability to test all your structured data on the website, the Rich Results tool, don't worry, tag John Mueller. He will fix it for you. Next thing, check out the new version of WordPress and see if you want to use that sitemap plugin or the sitemap ability that comes without a plugin. You can test your web stories with the Google AMP testing tool. And if you're generating income from YouTube, go ahead and try that new metric, RPM. And if you want to be tricky and try to go around Google with your interstitials, you can go direct to user and try Google Shopping if you feel like the new Google Shopping ability to sell products directly through it without any commission fees if you want to have less commission than on Amazon. But I will say, with Amazon's growth and you see how much they are just taking off, obviously that's the place to be right now. We actually have a new Amazon director at our company. We're super excited about that. So if you need help with Amazon, let us know. Have a great week. Leave a comment. I love chatting with you online. See you next week. Goodbye.